Ivanka Trump was at the State Department, where she helped unveil the government's annual report on human trafficking, which calls on foreign governments to put a halt to the practice that endangers mostly women and children. This year's report contains 2 pages condemning the separation of children from their families. At one point, it reads, quote, "Removal of a child from the family should only be considered as a temporary last resort." Ivanka Trump did not speak at the event, and she has not made any comments at her public appearances about the Trump administration's policy of separating more than 2,000 children from their parents. Instead, she reportedly only spoke out in private, asking her father, quote, "Daddy, what are we doing about this?" And tweeting last week, "Now that an EO has been signed ending family separation at the border, it's time to focus on swiftly and safely reuniting the families that have been separated." Today, Vanity Fair's Emily Jane Fox reports this about Ivanka Trump's silence on the border crisis. People who know the first daughter, who are by now familiar with her cycle of silence and closed-door entreaties to her father, were baffled as to how she botched her messaging in such a major way. One person summed it up this way, quote, "It's now clearly at the point where she is overly gaming every move out, and that leads to paralysis. What we saw last week was just total paralysis. She does know what's right, but she's scared to even do that." Joining me now is Emily Jane Fox, senior reporter at Vanity Fair and MSNBC contributor. She's the author of the new book, Born Trump. Thank you very much for your patience with a few technical difficulties there, Emily. I want you to talk just a little bit about this contrast. So you have the First Lady being sent out to the border to sort of make a show of compassion this time, because she didn't have the jacket, but really focusing her compassion on the Border Patrol officials. And then you have Ivanka, who's not even doing that, who's sort of not doing anything. What do you make of it?
You know, it's interesting. The First Lady spoke out initially last weekend, a week and a half ago now, and gave a statement that basically said nothing, but at least she had something to say. And then she tried to go down last week to the border, and of course the jacket overshadowed her trip. And her trip today was largely a photo op, but again, it showed that she has some interest in this. And what do we see the person who is in the White House, who is there to be an advisor for women and children and families, doing? Absolutely nothing. You don't hear her saying anything publicly. You don't see her doing anything. I do believe that she has said something to her father privately about the issue on the border. I know from my reporting that that is true, but that is not enough when your entire role in the West Wing is to be a public advocate for women and children. And people around her, people who have advised her recently, people who are friends of hers from years ago, people who talk to her all the time, have said this was an easy layup for her. The First Lady had already paved the way for her. All she had to do was just mimic what the First Lady had said. She wouldn't risk her father getting mad at her, which is something she's deeply concerned about. And she still couldn't even do that. And they are just baffled by her silence. And as one former friend told me yesterday, this is something that's going to stick to her.
But, you know, Emily, you just said something that I have to go back to you and sort of recap, that she doesn't want to risk her father getting mad at her. Part of being an advisor, particularly at this level, a White House advisor, is that you're the person who can tell the president things that will make him mad because you are trying to improve his policies. You know, on something like this that is so dramatic, the whole world is watching this administration take children from their parents.
Well,
why is she in the White House if she's afraid of making Donald Trump mad at her?
Well, that's a great question. This is why it is unusual, and it had been illegal for half a century for someone in a person's family to serve in a West Wing position. There's a reason why you don't appoint your family members, because there is that level of conflict of interest and an inability to actually serve as a traditional advisor. But I will say, it's not that she's afraid of speaking up in private. It's that he gets angry if she speaks up in public about something. We saw this when she spoke up about Roy Moore in the campaign, and she said there's a special place in hell for people who treat children improperly. And her father, behind the scene, was frustrated that she made that public statement. So it's not that there's an issue with her advising him behind the scenes. It's when it comes to speaking out publicly, there is a bit of a hesitation of, is this going to upset the relationship? And that is exactly why having a first daughter in a senior role in the West Wing is an issue, and why it has been illegal for half a century.
Well, what is the relationship? I mean, is it that she is a dependent? Is it a business relationship? What is the relationship?
It's all of the above. It's a very complicated relationship. This is someone who has essentially been his employee since she was born, but they are very close at the same time, and he does value her opinion. But at the end of the day, the only person who can tell Donald Trump what to do is Donald Trump.
Yeah, Politico is reporting that Maggie Cordish, who's a close friend of Ivanka Trump and an advisor to her on the issue she was supposed to be conversant on, paid family leave, has left the White House. There are no plans to replace her, signaling a likely pullback from the White House's efforts to pass paid family leave. Was this always a fig leaf, all of this stuff about doing things for families and women and girls? Was that always a ruse? Because what Donald Trump is doing now in terms of the way he treats families and children, this is actually what he wants to do.
You know, it's difficult to say what her exact intentions were. There are a number of times where she will go make public speeches, where she will go and launch different initiatives having to do with science and technology education. But those are the easy wins. Those are the things that her father doesn't much care about or aren't particularly sticky within the rest of the West Wing. Those are the things that traditionally maybe a first lady or a first daughter would support. There's no controversy there. When it comes to the controversial issues, when it comes to her having to speak up against an administrative position, she is silent time and time again. I think it's time that we all stop expecting her to do the right thing, because she never has since she has joined the administration.
Yeah, well, amen to that. Emily Jane Fox, thank you very much. Appreciate your reporting.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.